Now, our royal correspondents jetting from New York to Paris because it's a really big week for the royal family. We've had the Earthshot Prize stuff with Prince William, and today His Royal Highness King Charles III and Queen Camilla are travelling to France for their first overseas engagement, and it will be a full state visit.
This one was postponed from a few weeks ago because of the riots in Paris, and they're going to join President and Mrs Macron for a ceremony of remembrance and wreath laying at the Arc de Triomphe, marking the shared sacrifices of the past and an enduring legacy of cooperation
and this is before a
countries.
Very fancy banquet this evening at the Palace of Versailles. Well, someone who knows more about all of this than us is the royal commentator Michael Cole. Good morning to you, Michael. Look, they had such a successful state visit, didn't they, to Germany? They'll be hoping to replicate that today in Paris.
Good morning, Isabel. Good morning, Eamon. Yes, in royal terms, a state visit to France is big medicine indeed. As Eamon has just said, there will be a wreath laying at the Arc de Triomphe in memory of the hundreds of thousands of French, British and Irish soldiers who died on the soil of France. And there will be this splendid banquet this evening at Versailles in the Hall of Mirrors. 180 people at a table 180 feet long. Why such a big table? So that everybody present can say, I was at the King's table. There'll also be meetings with, there we are, we're seeing Macron, an earlier meeting with the King and the Queen. The Queen, by the way, will be meeting with Madame Macron. They're setting up a Franco-British literary prize. On the sporting front, there'll be meetings with some of the players who are there in the Rugby World Cup. And of course, besides the British players, the Irish players, the Welsh, the Scots, the Australians and the New Zealanders. So plenty of people for the King and the Queen to meet. And on the following day, they'll be going down to Bordeaux, which of course was one of the last possessions in France of the English King. Years and years, centuries ago, where they'll be visiting an organic vineyard. Of course, claret, very close to the British heart at all times. And, you know, these visits, state visits to France, are very, very important. The basis of our relationship with France was the 1904 Entente Cordiale, and that was sealed by Edward VII, the King's great-great-grandfather, when he kissed the hand of a French actress and said, Madame, you are as beautiful as France itself. Now, that actually was the clincher, because only 6 years before, we'd almost gone to war with France over the Fashoda incident, and we'd been on bad terms with France for ages. But since that 1904 Entente Cordiale, we've been allies through 2 world wars. From time to time, the relationship has been strained. Of course it has. But there have been other very important state visits. 1938, King George VI and the Queen Elizabeth, later the Queen Mother, just before the visit, her mother died, and they didn't postpone. And very cleverly, the Queen wore a wardrobe all of white, which is the alternate colour for mourning, and she created a sensation in France, which is very hard to do for British people to lead in fashion, but she did, and everybody went wild for her. So great things are in prospect, and this is, as Eamon indicated, a very important visit.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing story about Queen Elizabeth's mother. And setting that fashion trend there, because I wouldn't normally think of her in terms of being a fashion leader, but and how amazing that must have been, not to be in black, but to be in all white.
Amazing. Lady Strathmore, Countess of Strathmore, the Queen Mother's mother, died, and they postponed it for 6 days, but they did something very clever. I think it was Norman Hartnell, who was for a long time the couturier for the royal family. They just said, let's go white. You know, they couldn't have her going on a state visit draped in black, which is a normal thing, widow's weeds. And it was a sensation, and the pictures still exist. And of course, as you say, we've never tell the French about fashion, although the original couturier, Worth, was a Yorkshireman. And he dressed the French Empress Eugénie in the 19th century. So, in a way, the Brits were there at the birth of the French fashion industry in the 19th century.
Michael,
anyway, we'll be watching it, and I'm sure you will. I think there'll be some great pictures.
Okay, very good. Michael, as usual, you're full of it. Full of all that lovely, marvellous information.
Well, the pictures he's painting.
He's painted. He's a painter. Do you know what? You can tell why.
Of the king or queen.
I bet you he sat at a big table.
Yeah.
He's done that this time. But that's a whole story for another day, my friend.